Mitchell Area Chamber of Commerce. Today we will hear from our District 20 state legislators, Representative Tona Rosem, Representative Lance Carson, and Senator Josh Klum. Before we start, we would like to thank the City of Mitchell for the use of their facilities and enabling us to broadcast live over their YouTube channel, as well as record the session for later viewing. We are also broadcasting via Facebook Live on the Mitchell Chamber of Commerce account. This session is scheduled for 1 hour, so I'll start by describing the format. Each legislator will have 2 minutes to give a brief overview of the session or to talk about a particular item they see of interest. We will then move to questions from the audience. Audience, please keep your questions brief and to the point. We only have an hour and want to get to as many questions from the audience as possible. When asking a question, please go to the podium. Well, you don't need to do that. You can go to the microphones right over there. And speak clearly, stating your name before asking the question, please. Legislators will be given ample time to answer each question, but please be mindful of the other legislatures, which you always are. Well, it says we'll alternate, but you guys just kind of do your own thing, so just go ahead. We'll end the session with closing statements. We ask that you respect one another and that audience members keep your side conversations to a minimum, and please turn off your cell phones. Let's get started. We'll start with Representative Carson for opening statements.
Thank you very much. Well, thank the Chamber and the City for allowing us to do this. This will be the last Cracker Barrel that I sit in on. I'm not running for re-election. Things have I'm very happy to have been able to serve District 20 for 10 years in here. I think that I've done a nice job. I didn't say I did an excellent job, but I think I've done a nice job. I have served. Yesterday, if you'd have been in session or in our appropriations, there were some that left a little upset because they didn't get the money they thought they were entitled to. But that's the way it works. This has been an interesting session. It's went very, very, very fast. And I think we've accomplished something. We started the session without any money, and now we've got about $18 million to spend. And those where we spend it has not been decided. We'll go back Sunday night and continue to hammer on where we want to spend it. I am in hopes that 24/7 providers are at the top of the list of the things that I've seen. They have been. I appreciate everybody. Go ahead, Tom.
I'll save my thanks for later. So Sunday night we'll go back. We'll talk about the money, which has floated between 16 and 20 million. So glad to hear from the appropriator that at least we still have about 18 million. You all know that my push has been for 5.87 million for our community support providers, being LifeQuest. I'm hoping on Sunday night I'll see a breakdown of actual numbers rather than just one group of community-based providers, which also includes child care provider like Abbott House, nursing homes. So being able to sort out those providers into groups is really what I'm looking forward to. I got a promise from an appropriator and says she's going to have it ready for me. That'll be the battle. There's not, 17 or 18 million seems like a lot of money, but it's really not when you sort out some of the areas that do have dire need. But I've said from the get-go going in, and I'll say it going out, if we can't bring our CSPs up to where Yankton is before we give them another raise, I'm going to have trouble supporting the general bill. So we'll see what happens on Sunday night. That'll be kind of the knigling that goes on next week. It's all good. Yeah, that's a new word for me. Yeah, I know. So we'll talk about some of the other bills that have been brought as we go along that I find interesting, or shall we say, not thinking through all the consequences or the wording and what the end result may have been. We're killing a few of the Senate, maybe more than a few of the Senate bills that have made its way over, and they're doing likewise. So we'll get on with the show.
Well, thanks everyone for being here today. Appreciate what you guys have all done, the chamber and stuff with the Cracker Barrels this year. Session is winding down, of course, and as sessions go, it's been a very quiet session. It's been, the years I've been there, it's one of the quietest I think I've experienced. Not to say it hasn't been eventful. There's been good things that have happened. Of course, finding $18 million is always a good thing. Just as a side note, it's not a lot of money. I was talking with a representative friend of mine from Wyoming, and he said that they're currently, and this is Wyoming now, they're currently taking in they're spending $900 million more a year than they're taking in. We were talking education over there. Their education budget is $1.4 billion, and they're severely overspent in that area. And so they have major problems. So we think we have problems. We don't know what problems are. So we can be very fortunate we live in a state that doesn't have the lows other states do, and on the other side, we don't experience the highs other states do. But Wyoming's had a very good time going for a long time with their coal and oil, but that's decreased. So now they're facing some tough times. So again, we have good times here overall. We're a very steady state, and I'm appreciative of that. I love this state. I love the district we live in. We got good people. I appreciate working with Representative Carson for the past several years, and Representative Tona Rosum. She's been great to work with. She bribed me to say that. No, she didn't. No, they've really been a good team. I've appreciated all of their advice and stuff throughout the years. So, but that, we had the non-meander water issue was something I've been working on a long time. I think we kind of saw that come to a close this past week. We passed a bill that removes the sunset clause. You might have seen it in the paper, that removes the sunset clause that puts the bill into statute for the foreseeable future. Again, every legislature can deal with any subject that they want to. Every year, a sunset isn't necessary in my mind to address that issue. So I see that coming to a close this past week. So that's been my big issue. And of course, money will always be at the top of the mind now for the rest of the upcoming week. So, any questions?
We will now take questions from the audience, please. Again, please go to one of the microphones, state your name, and then the question.
Go, John.
Okay, there we go. John Claggett, Davidson County. Where are we at with the alcohol distribution, 1308? And they were trying to push more for the counties. Where's that going, and where's it gone?
It's in appropriations, and it will die.
Yes, and that's
It's 4.17 million. And I'll tell you how that came out of committee wasn't really a stellar move. I did vote for it, however, so I guess maybe after the fact I could kick myself a little bit, but it was really making a point because that's the bill that started out with a quarter tax at the wholesale level, which becomes problematic on malt beverages. And then in the 11th hour got switched. The Sioux Falls legislator brought up, well, if we just took that existing alcohol tax and went from 25 to 50% to counties, we'd solve some issues maybe or help. Well, you really need to vet those things well before you do it, because if you're going to pull almost 4.2 over here, where are you going to get this? Because that's coming out of the general fund, which funds things like CSPs and education and everything else. So even the guy who did it said that after it made it out, he said, that probably wasn't the best move to make, but it made it out of the House, which the tabling motion only got 30 votes and it needed 36. So I was kind of shocked at that, but it did. And I think the good thing that comes of that is it really does bring to the fore the desperate need counties have because of what's happened with the whole rework of the judicial system.
One of the things you have to consider, John, that was one-time money, and so it wasn't going to go anyplace.
This has been a perennial issue for a couple of decades, and it's had all kinds of different forms, but we hope there's a form that comes about sometime.
And I'll just say I signed on to that bill when it was a quarter-cent alcohol tax for the conversation of where we might find some additional monies. Then they hog-housed it, and it's no longer my bill. My name is just on it yet.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Any other questions from the audience?
Good afternoon, I should say. Paul Whitman. And question on Marcy's Law. It was voted on by the people about 2 years ago, and I think it passed by about 60% of the people. Now, I would like to know, you got the legislation, they decided they're going to make some changes in it. So I'd like to know what changes are being made, and now it looks like they want a vote on it by the people at a primary. Now, why do they want a vote at a primary rather than a general election? I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, I'll take that because that was in state affairs. Originally, there was a bill to remove Marcy's Law from the Constitution and put it in statute so that you're able to make adjustments. In the end, what happened is everybody came together to include the Marcy's Law people and worked through what needed to be changed in the Constitution. So obviously, if it's going to be changed in the Constitution, it has to go to the vote of the people. Nothing wrong with that, except it takes a lot of work and it takes a lot of money to explain it. Marcy's Law people admitted that we were right at the get-go as they were moving into other states, that they made a mistake. And they're very open about that. They should have come to the state and worked with the stakeholders in the state of South Dakota. Had they done that with state's attorneys, et cetera, they would have been able to work through it. Well, they're recognizing their mistake now. And so in the states where it's passed, they're going back to try to rework and make it work with what exists already at that state level. And with the new states that they're going to, they're actually starting the way they should do it, which is work with people in the trenches. So Mark Mickelson was at the head of trying to get some changes made. And when they all came together, the Marcy's Law people were at our meeting and were very much behind it. It will allow some opt-in. It also defines what family is, or I think, isn't that right? It would be what family is. And there's some other references with that. They're 100% behind it. It is their desire to have it in the June election and the primary election. I think from Mark Mickelson's standpoint, from state affairs standpoint, we don't care. Put it wherever you want to. But one of the final questions to the Marcy's Law gal was, you spent a lot of money in the state of South Dakota to get this on the books. And I'm going to come back and tell you one instance that came to our attention that really does point out why we need to make changes. And they said, and the chair said, are you going to be willing to come in now to get this adjusted in the Constitution to make it work correctly? And they said, absolutely, we're behind it 100%. We'll bring money. I mean, we'll support it monetarily. I think that they think that if they could do it in the June election, it will take less money than it would if you put it in on the November ballot, which you can tell it's going to be a very full ballot. So that's the story behind that. We had a woman and her daughter speak to us, and the husband, dad, was killed on a 2-lane road, and the gal that was driving the car had crossed over the middle lane. It was obviously her fault. It happened at like 8:30 in the morning. It took them 1.5 years to get the name of the person who was in that car, which causes issues with collecting insurance, life, and all sorts of things. And the mother of the gal said that she was the victim. And so there's just so many instances of how this needed to work better. Because I think we all support victims' rights, and whether it belongs in the Constitution or statute is a moot point at this point, because it will remain in the Constitution. But it's a long, long list. You can go on and look at it if you want to. But I think most generally it allows the opt-in. It clarifies family. It's one of the things that's caused counties an exponential costs. So it's a good thing. It's everybody's on board, and it's a good thing. And we'll be the first state where they've tried to rectify this, but they'll be doing it in North Dakota and I think Montana, and I can't remember where else.
Well, one of the things you asked what was in it, and as I look through it right in front of me, if you want to go online, it's HJR 1004. You can go on and look at the language, and a lot of what's in it, they're just adding the words upon request, the right upon request, the right upon request. So that's what it's going to be. So that, you can go look at it. There's a few more things that they do, but that's a lot of it. But it's a 5-page. Yeah. So, but again, and putting it on the June primary for another reason, like Tona said, is it's costing counties a lot of money. So this is helping to rectify some of that.
Actually, I don't know. It'll take a 2/3 vote to get it in the primary election, but I do think it probably makes sense in that that ballot's not going to be crowded with a whole bunch of other stuff, of which there will be plenty.
Representative Carson, do you have anything else to add?
I was contacted by several states' attorneys that wanted to see these changes and are very happy that we're working forward through them. That's about the only comment that I'd have. Appears that it's going to save the county quite a few dollars.
Next question, please.
Brian Heisel with Mitchell Chamber and Development. Just bill status on the increase in cigarette tax, some of which would maybe go towards VOTEC tuition reduction. I know there's already an initiated measure. I was just curious on bill status.
That's dead. Died on the Senate side, a fiery death, no pun intended. But it still will be on the ballot, so we'll have a crack at it. But it went down in flames, really, and the argument was that if you're old enough to serve, you should be old enough to buy cigarettes. I supported it, and I knew that I was probably in a minority, and the line in the sand is pretty good over rights versus my opinion. My opinion was if I can save some high school kids from smoking cigarettes because the statistics are really pretty good. If you don't smoke before 21, there's a pretty good chance you won't smoke. But if you smoke younger, it also opens up the door for other addictions. So
It was one of those bills that probably was not written real well, a lot of thought going into it. It would, you could not, at 19 you couldn't buy cigarettes, but yet you could smoke cigarettes, so it was kind of doomed to go that way.
that's the buck tax, and that went down too. But yeah. The both of them, all the way around, the cigarette things died.
Did Diane House or Senate? Thanks.
We got it out of committee. Couldn't make it fly. Sorry. Yeah.
Thanks.
There weren't that many cigarette bills, and I get them confused.
More questions, please.
I know. Well, here's the deal. I'm in State Affairs and Judiciary, and those two committees just get swamped with bills. So I'm probably the only person here that's got another committee meeting next week outside of Lance, who is in committee all the time. But one of the bills that came over to State Affairs was in the Constitution. It states that if we were to call up a militia, which I don't know the last time that's happened or would happen, but if we were to call it up, it says that only able-bodied males under the age of 45 would be called up. Well, the sponsor wanted to remove males because women are in the military, and remove the age because sometimes you're in the military longer than 45. So I'm sitting there looking at it, and it says shall call then any able-bodied person. I'm looking at my gray-haired cohorts and saying, you want to be in the militia? I don't want anybody shall be calling me to be in the militia just because I'm able-bodied. So we killed that one. It made it through the Senate committee, made it through the Senate with, I think, pretty good colors. I think somebody just didn't really sit and think, really, we shall call up anybody. So I don't know how able-bodied you all feel, but I wasn't feeling that able-bodied. We've got another one that's coming up Monday morning. If you bring a commemoration, typically that commemoration is going to be for high school sports teams. A lot of high school kids, whether they're show choir, I just brought one for gymnastics because we won. We've been very successful. In the past, I brought one for Carrie Young because of their successful run, and for the Mitchell Colonel girls. So those are the kinds of things. Or it might be somebody in the military. Well, one commemoration that showed up on the Senate side, which was for a particular investigative reporter who's, I'm going to say, controversial at the least. All it takes is one person to stand up and say, I object, and that commemoration is over. Well, I see we got a bill now that says it should take a majority of either or both of the, well, it'd have to be both of the chambers in order to kill a commemoration. And I'll tell you up front, I will oppose that, because I think if we're commemorating as a legislature, that we should have full support for commemorations. It's not an avenue for political statement or statements that tend to be controversial. It really should be reserved for nice things. My take.
I got to tell you about the military. This was a dandy. Senate Bill 97. It's a very simple bill. It says if you're a lady or female in the military, you can get your own plate that distinguishes that you are a female and you are a veteran. Some of the plates say National Guard, disabled, veteran, active duty, POW, Pearl Harbor survivor, Gold Star mother, or Gold Star holder. This bill hits the floor, and I understand tensions are been a little high on the floor for about a week now, and there's not been a lot of conversation. I believe this bill was on the floor for an hour and 35 minutes. It was beat to death, and it was simply just saying, if you're a female and you want a license plate, didn't say you had to get the plate, didn't say you couldn't get the plate. It just added it to the list of 18 other plates that are out there that you can get your organization put on. You know, it's kind of funny in my book that we spent that much time on a bill that is a feel-good bill more than anything else.
Yeah, woman veteran. And we have women veterans that serve both chambers, and in fact, one of them on the Senate side was behind us because she got out of her car and a person said, I see you have a veteran plate. Tell your husband thank you for serving. She said, that would be me. And so that's why it was brought. And the one on our side just said, she served, she had a career, and she said, I am a veteran. I'm not a woman veteran, I am a veteran. So, and I think women in general, I don't know, I shouldn't speak, but I say I'm a legislator. I'm not a woman legislator, I'm a legislator. So I got where she was coming from, but Lance is right. Went on for a long time.
I'll talk about one of the other projects I've kind of been interested in. That's the Precision Ag project up in Brookings that they're doing. It's SDSU is the first university in the nation to offer a BS in precision agriculture. And what the college is proposing to do is renovate an ag classroom there and a laboratory building. And they're going to build a new building that would replace these facilities. And so it's going to combine engineering, I think mathematics, agronomics, and environmental analysis to improve on traditional agricultural farming methods. And it's going to work with farmers and ranchers and livestock and foresters and water and soil and just all the different aspects of agriculture, and work on how do we do it with more precision. You know, we see this every day with our machinery and stuff. We can map our fields and we can plant at different rates in different spots of the same field and stuff like that. So it's going to build on that. And it's really the first in the nation kind of program that does that. But of course, with all that, there's a cost to it. The plan right now, I think it's about $46 million in cost. And before you think, well, we only have 18 million that we found. Well, a lot of it comes from private funding. I think they've found about 16.6 million from private sources like the Corn Utilization Council and Raven Industries, and there's other groups that have provided money. SDSU is kicking in 11 million of that money. And then agriculture, the farmers, and a few other sources. There's an expiring ethanol fund. And what they're going to do, they're going to bond for the other 18 million. And then they will pay that $1.2 million bond payment every year with some money from expiring ethanol infrastructure fund that was used. That's sunsetting. And there's going to be a fertilizer increase. This is all proposed right now. A fertilizer increase of 25 cents a ton. And then here's the biggest sticking point is $4 million of general funds that will probably fight over the most of one-time general fund dollars to make this $1.2 million bond payment. This is AG's. I know of all the ag groups out there, this is AG's number one priority this year is to get this to go through. But I really see the whole thing hinging on this $4 million bond payment, and whether or not we can just add a couple more million to the bond, I don't know if that's possible, why they chose 18 and want 4 million from one-time dollars. I haven't been part of that part of the conversation, but I do know from the Senate side of things, there's going to be a hiccup there. And so we'll just see what all plays out this week. But that's one of the other projects other than the water issue that I've been kind of following this session.
Do we have any further questions? Will you please step to the microphone, state your name, and ask the question, please?
I'm John Schmidt from Woonsocket, and I got to pop up my question quick. Sorry about that. Test. Okay. Okay. There we go. Okay. Now, South Dakotans are concerned about health care, Social Security, climate change, and the corrupting effect of money in our politics. The initiative measure has protected us for decades. It took tens of thousands of working class signatures and volunteers to give us I Am 22. Finally, I Am 22 would expose corruption or corporate corruption in South Dakota. Unfortunately, Pierre took it away and then tried to stop future working class initiatives with HB 67, which would double the number of signatures needed, making it practically impossible to do. That was last year. This year, these are just some of the bills attacking initiative measures. HB 1196 and HB 1177. I can go on and on these, the fake out-of-state bill and all those. I'll just concentrate on these two, the 1196 and the 1177. Now, on those two, 77 also makes volunteer go through extremely burdensome form process, which working, Americans don't have time for all that stuff. There's also, HB 96 and HB 1177 would force volunteers, including young women, to release personal information to strangers. Now, here's some of the information, just a small part of what people would be forced to release.
Sir, do you have a question?
Yes, this is the question.
Okay.
Would you be willing to right now tell everybody in this room, if you were, going through this process, give me your personal phone number, give me your personal email address, give me also your current address where you live, give me also the 2 previous addresses prior to that, and then your personal driver's license number. And did you pass those bills?
Who would like to start?
I don't know where it is on the Senate side. Many of these have been amended time and time again. If I'm going to back up and comment, you said Americans don't have time for this. I'm sorry, if you can bring an initiated measure, you should have time to not only research it, but you got to have time to go out and get the signatures. So it does take time. It should take time. It impacts our entire state. So it's a very serious issue. And I'm going to tell you one other that I brought so you know about it, 1007, which says, we already say in the Constitution that any bill should have, any constitutional amendment should be one subject, and it should be in the title. That now will be in statute as well, because it's heading to the governor's desk. Any initiated measure should be one topic, and it should be in the title, so that you as the voter know what you're voting on, and you're not trying to sort through 36 pages, which, by the way, I've had one person tell me that, and I am 22. So you should know what you're voting on. Number 2, if you're bringing an initiated measure, it very clearly states that you must have one topic. Up until 2007, all initiated measures go through Legislative Research Council.
It's not my question.
I'll get to your question because it's a basis for all of it. You had to, up until 2007, you had, if you're bringing a measure, you had to take whatever the advice was from Legislative Research Council. Now you don't have to comply, and that can get us into trouble. What's being attempted, and I'm going to say, don't judge us by the bills that are introduced, judge us by the bills that come out on the other end, because 105 legislators obviously have a lot of ideas. 1196 would have, it regards verification of the people who are the petition circulators. So where do you live? Are you a resident of South Dakota? So it's requiring residency verification. You do not have to give your personal address. That was in the original bill that got amended out right away because I said we can't be giving the houses where we live. Contact information, yeah. But much of this information goes to the Secretary of State's office. It's not released to the public. Now, I can ask you if you're circulating a petition, where do you live, and what is your address? And one of the reasons for that is Nicholson, who brought a lot of initiated measure, or a lot of bills, initiated measures, said as he was trying to get people to help him, well, where do you live? Well, the address was a hotel in Sioux Falls. Well, you live there now? Well, no, but I stayed here 2 years ago. So we need to understand who's carrying the petitions. Number 1177 passed out of the House. It was amended and passed out 56-11. And that one is the one that you're referencing with the information. I'm not sure where it is over on your side. Well, all of these, I mean, this is how many bills that were brought that were dealing with the referendum process. What was the vote? Okay. Yeah, so that'll go to the floor. What about 96? I think 96 there was a lot of support for, well, I shouldn't say that. It was 40-27.
96 is out of the committee too. It'll be on the floor next week.
Okay.
But you still didn't answer my question. I mean, what about the phone numbers, personal phone numbers? Did they take that out?
It's the Secretary of State.
It's an affidavit. It's a sworn affidavit, not released to the public, as I understand it. It goes to the Secretary of State's office, and it has all the information that you can find on our website. My phone number is on there. My personal address is on there. My personal email, my state email is on there. But
Driver's license number?
That's not on there.
Never heard of the driver's license number. Because that's your social security number, so you wouldn't be giving that.
No, it's not.
Not all the
Well, right now, not all the time, but mine is.
It seems like, though, this is just a couple of the continual attacks on the initiative measure. And, the way I see it, it's basically the Koch brothers trying to slow down us, the working class people trying to get our state back, and their big hundreds of millions of dollars that they have to throw around.
You didn't get any of it. Yeah, I sure did.
Yes, you did through media. Through media. That's the way they work.
It goes both ways.
Well, no, you don't see a lot of discussion about climate change in the state.
But I'm going to say $9.2 million coming into the state from out-of-state money in 2016. That's an awful lot of money.
John Thune has a lot of money.
Senator Klum, do you have any comments on this?
I don't know that I could add anything to this that'll make Mr. Smith happy, but I have not been bought or paid by anyone. I am a farmer from south of Mitchell. That's what I do. You can look at my bank account. I have got, it really makes me mad when we get accused of being corrupt. Because I serve with good people up there who are just citizens, just like anyone here. And when we get accused of corruption, why in the world would anyone want to serve in this body and go through the crap we go through in order to make a South Dakota a better state and then get accused that we're corrupt and getting paid under the table? That's insulting to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm a little insulted too, because I study Arctic methane release. I study climate change. And I don't understand why the media won't allow discussion on it.
Representative Carson, do you have a comment as to his question?
You know, I'm probably going to go along with Representative or Senator Klum. I've served in the legislature 10 years out of 12. I've run across a lot of legislators. I've known a lot of legislators. I've been involved in the political process long before that. When Cliff Roberts ran for governor, I was involved in them in the political aspect. I have I have never even heard a rumor of a legislator taking more than a coffee cup or a free meal. I personally won't take a meal. I will take a cup of coffee. I do take toothbrushes and pens. But, you know, in April, we used to go to Pier and we had a full scale of, on the back of the calendar. Every night we had something you could go to. I did not attend a lot of them. This year, I think that was over this last week. I don't know that we've had anything of that nature. So I'm not just more than offended on to think that, you know, when I took this job, before I went to Pier, I called the LRC to see what my pay was. And I would say that a lot of you wouldn't know. So the other day at coffee, there were 11 of us sitting there, and I said, "What do you think my pay is?" The first guy started at 60,000, and it was 50,000, and worked around. There were several that were at 30,000, and I said, $6,000 plus per diem, and explained what the per diem was, and they all looked at me and said, "You're nuts." I don't know, you know, Lou sat there and did the job for 8 years. I think that I've got a tremendous amount of respect for legislators. If, you know, my suggestion, maybe you should try to run for the legislature and get elected.
It's media time is what I'm discussing. That's the most valuable thing.
Do we have any more questions?
Hi. Pam Hanna. I'm representing LifeQuest. First thing I want to do is say thank you to all of you, Senator Klum, Representatives Rosem and Carson, for going to bat for us this year. I know you've been a voice up there for us. And yeah, I do have a question. My question is I know you're working on the budget, and I know that you're doing some analysis this year, and you'll be this week and putting some pen to paper. And I'm going to get away from this a little bit. When will the final, when will it just kind of all come together? And
Well, we're going back in Sunday night at 7:30 to start hammering on some of the things that we need to put on there. Everybody's got their own opinion. Everybody's got, you know, an ideal what they would like to see put where the extra money is being spent. I think that if you ask me a direct date, I think the two caucuses will come together probably Wednesday night or Thursday morning.
thank you. And thank you again for showing up for us.
You can look. I've got several different budget seats where you know, we started with state employees, providers, dual credit, state radio. I don't think state radio can survive. You know, and just things of that nature. Precision ag, veterinary, the vet cemetery, and there'll be priorities and seeing what's left.
I am Hugh Holmes. I'm the state commander of the South Dakota American Legion, and first of all, thank you for your service. I'd like to thank Senator Klum for voting for the East River Veterans Bill the other day, and for our two representatives. I know you're going to hear about it on Monday, I think about 2 o'clock. I appreciate your positive vote to pass the East River Cemetery Bill for veterans. Thank you.
I'd like to thank the veterans organizations for coming together and making this possible. They were given a curveball at the last hearing, and they were able to work through it with the governor's office. And it's one of those things that I said here several weeks ago and told you the water issue wouldn't be settled till the last week, and that's kind of where we're at.
Any other questions? Okay.
On non-meandered, one of, there were two bills, one to go back to the 2021 deadline, and then one to take it off completely. And the one that finally came to the fore was having it off completely. And one of the reasons behind that is the Secretary of Department of Water and Natural Resources has done a really, really good job finally talking to both sides on that question. And it's allowing some 10-year contracts to be set up. The farmers are very open to having the water open with consideration so that it's not trashed and they're not drilling ice fishing holes right under their bedroom window, et cetera. But this is all coming together, I think, really well and allowing for long-term contracts. So in the end, it came out, I think, faster because we're not on the last day, than any of us thought. And we tabled the bill that came over yesterday, so we're good to go on that one. And that's mostly the upper Northeast. So that's the people that we listen to say, what do you think? And they're all in agreement, at least the ones I've talked to. The opponents typically were from Rapid City or Sioux Falls, and they, like West River, this just isn't, non-meandered isn't an issue at all.
One more time, are there any further questions before we get to closing remarks?
I have one question, since you brought up the veterans. And my father was in the Second World War, and I have many people in my family that have served. And I noticed when I was out up here about a week ago, I was, watching the legislators. On the Senate floor, a man by the name of Monroe, Senator Monroe, on his computer, on the back, where you have the wallpaper in front of the icons, he chose the Nazi swastika. I would like your opinion on having the Nazi swastika on our floor.
I won't even comment on something like that.
Why not? It's a Nazi swastika.
Whatever the gentleman wants to do.
Well, that's fine with you. That wouldn't be fine with me.
Whatever the gentleman wants to do, he can go ahead and do it. But I don't believe that's the standard for anybody else. Now, are you sure it's a Nazi swastika, or is it an Indian peace symbol?
I seen it clearly, and other people seen it too, as a Nazi swastika.
Okay. Well, I said besides Senator Monroe in committee, I have seen his desktop. What it is a bunch of pictures of pigeons, homing pigeons, which he's a huge aficionado of. He raises them, he races them, he loves them. He had that up there because of the effect that the pigeons had in the service they had in World War II, I think. That's what it is.
Well, I took a picture of it, so I have it. Anybody wants to see the swastika, I'll show it.
Okay.
Any further questions?
Okay, just curious, I know we have a lot of poverty in the school districts in South Dakota, and I know in Sioux Falls, I think there's like 50% of the kids that are on free school lunches, and I'm wondering now, they do have problems, they've run out of money. Is there any way that the schools can use their capital outlay money for extra money so kids, everybody will get a meal without having to, because a lot of times it goes back with the parents and they're not responsible enough to fill out the forms. But, you can't put that on the kids. And I'm just wondering if you can use capital outlay to, provide meals. I know in Mitchell, there's a lot of very kind people that donate money for kids that aren't able to have a meal.
Every school district's going to be different. Josh is going to be, he's really dug into this situation, and he'll talk in a minute. But in Mitchell, 3 or 4 businessmen got together, and they raised a little over $3,000, $3,500 to be exact. That will buy someplace around 4,500 meals for these kids to subsidize it. I think that maybe that's one of the ways to go. I don't know that, when talking to legislators, a lot of them didn't realize it was a problem, but I don't think that capital outlays can do it.
I would hesitate to do that just because capital outlay is still public dollars, and then we're starting to use public dollars to feed the kids, which, again, kids need to eat, parents need to be responsible. And I wrote that article a couple weeks ago. And,
A lot of them are.
and that's what needs to happen. I would really hesitate before, because if we start taking money from just those areas and start paying for those things, they're going to start, it's going to trickle down, and pretty soon, it'll always grow. Once you start that process, I worry about that. There are free and reduced lunches, and that's what needs to happen. That's part of being a responsible parent.
I agree.
So.
And I think, Tara, there are many schools that have a type of fund where people have contributed to help the kids truly that need to, trying to avoid the parents who would just take advantage of it. So I think where the leaning really is the parent, as he said, parent responsibility, and that's what they go after. So but the whole thing about that bill was it brought to the fore some of the circumstances, and I think made school districts think about it too. So in the end, even though it's not something that probably belonged in statute, because we shouldn't be mandating for the schools unless we want their responsibilities with other things.
Right.
I think though it brought some good conversation and good results.
And I'll kind of, are we starting closing? Because that's kind of be my closing, I think.
If
there's no more
Tara is
questions. Are
finished
you
with
done?
her question.
Well,
Okay.
on that aspect of, the bill was a good bill to have the conversation. It brought an issue to light that we needed to talk about. Did it need to be in statute? Probably not. But it got an awful lot of people's attention. Got schools who might be doing this like, oh, maybe we need to handle this differently. On the same token, there was the free speech on campus bill, which I supported, but in the end, it ultimately died. And I talked to the sponsor afterwards, and he said, it's okay that died. It had an intended effect. The schools woke up, at least for this year. We'll see how they behave or how they go through the summer, and if they improve their policies like they say they will, and work with the fire, I can't remember the group's name, but their national organization that works with free speech on every side of every issue. But it's sometimes it's bringing legislation to the forefront that gets people to click something in their brains that we need to maybe look on this before we just start passing laws to solve a problem. So the school lunch issue, the free speech on campus issue, or all those kind of things.
Yeah, I hate to see with that free speech, I kind of followed that bill. And it derived from the University of South Dakota with the honor diaries.
Yeah.
And that was stopped, that film. And that gal now is at, I think, Texas Tech that wanted to show it in the for women's rights. But that was, and I wonder who was behind that to stop that. Because, I mean,
I
it's
can
hard
tell
to
you
get
a
at.
little bit because that came in judiciary. And actually what the media picked up on was not what actually happened. They determined that they needed to go to a larger spot because it was bringing more people than they anticipated. So and that free speech bill was actually a canned document that came from ALEC, which is allegedly a legislator business group, but of the canned legislation I've seen come out of there, I haven't seen anything business related. It's been other stuff and when you tried to read that original bill, go figure it out.
Yeah.
Mitchell Tech, all the technical institutes were involved, and Mitchell Tech's outside classroom for pole climbing would have been part of it. So by the time I got over there, I think they gutted it. They did some other stuff. But if we were on the East Coast, it would be a real issue. But for what we had going on here, it did force some cleanup to make sure that the schools were doing it the way they should. I think good came out of it. But that was crazy on that movie because what the media reported is not exactly how the whole thing came down.
No.
So we found out.
Yeah. Thank you.
So are we on closing or what are we doing? Representative Carson, would you like to start?
Well, thank you very much for hosting this. Thank the city for allowing us to be here. Thank the Chamber of Commerce for everything they've done over the years. They've always held at least 2 Cracker Barrels. It's been very nice on my part. I've been very happy to serve District 20. I will miss it as we go down the road, but I think things have been pretty good, and I think that I've worked with some great legislators, Tona and Mike Valley and Senator Klum and the newspaper guy, Noel Hamill. That's his Get that old age thing kicking in. We will have some changes in the proposed budget here this week. There will be some late nights. You can drive by the Capitol and you'll see the lights on the 4th floor. Great, unless something has changed. And I'm pretty sure the Senate's not going to roll over on what we give them. But thank you, people of District 20, for allowing me to serve.
Sure.
Well, I'll have to say thank you, since this is the last Cracker Barrel where I get a microphone on this end of it anyway. But it's so nice to go back to Pierre and we talk with our other legislators. Davidson County and Aurora County and Gerald County have always been excellent counties. And when we have the Cracker Barrels, I have to thank our moderator, because she keeps it on track. We're very lucky here, so we don't have it run amok and become the sounding board for what really we can't control anyway. So I do want to say thank you to everybody. It's been wonderful serving you, and I think the one thing that you learn is you might run on one ticket or another, but you represent everybody, and you represent your district first, but you really are a trustee for the state of South Dakota, and that's a huge responsibility. And you have to think of everyone and where they're coming from. And that's why the legislature is kind of cool, because you have people from many different walks of life who are giving up 2.5 months with their families in the wintertime. And it's not a 9-week job, because you spend a lot of time the rest of the year too. And I thank Lou for being that guy. And people still ask me about him, and he's highly respected there. So we've always had good people from our neck of the woods, and we have great, I love our Cracker Barrels, because everybody's always been very considerate. So thank you for that, and stay in touch for what else we can do. I think Pam knows where I am on pounding the table for CSPs, because it's kind of my swan song. And by golly, if we can do anything for our kids and people that are disabled, that's what I want to do.
Thank you. Thanks again for everyone for coming, and thanks to the Chamber for hosting us. And then I just also, again, want to reiterate my profound respect and appreciation for my colleagues here that I've had the privilege of serving with. It will be different next year going forward. I may be here, I may not, who knows, but going forward, it's been quite an honor to serve with you, and I appreciate it. And I would like us all to give them a round of applause. Thank you. Thank you.
Tona? What? Did you know that Josh is getting married?
Josh? Is Josh getting married? Really?
Yep.
Like when?
I
don't know.
I think 16th of June.
Is he getting married in Mitchell?
No.
Oh. Cowgirl? Is he marrying a cowgirl?
Yeah, I am getting married this summer. I'm getting married the 5th. I found a school teacher from Gillette, Wyoming that I'll be marrying and bringing back to Mitchell for the area. So, whole new world, yep. So, June 15th, I will be out of, a few days around there, so don't call me or anything. But,
I think we should all call him.
but I'll be around the rest of the summer as campaign season goes on. I'll be working hard and trying to get out and meet people again, see what I did right and wrong. So.
And I would like to personally thank the three of you. You're always approachable. You're willing to listen. People may not always agree with you, but you're always willing to listen to different sides of the coin. So I really want to thank you for that. I haven't had to work with you a lot this year on legislation, but I just appreciate it. I know you, the three of you, have a thankless job, and you're not appreciated near enough. So.
You know, I forgot to say to JP, thank you. Billy's not here, but thank you for doing those radio shows, because that's another thing in Pierce. Like, yeah, we do them every Saturday morning, all session long, and they can't believe it. But I think we have to thank everybody for trying to keep our district at the front level, and so you know that you're part of it. So thanks, JP.
Thank you for attending today's Cracker Barrels.
That's all right. You did all right.
Hello, Madam Auditor.
Hi, how are you? Hey, I have my t-shirt I wore just for you. There you go.
I think
All my living
I think
friends.